Today, 1 out of every 108 people in the world is displaced. This means that worldwide, more than 70 million people were displaced by the end of 2018. Displacements can be internal within a country or take place across borders. According to the national census, 2.2 million foreigners lived in South Africa in 2011. In several African countries, political instability has led to violence and conflict. Natural disasters like tropical storms can displace people living in coastal areas. Climate anomalies can lead to flooding. Areas close to big rivers, such as the Limpopo River, are particularly vulnerable. Other areas suffer from drought conditions linked to global warming. Hemorrhagic diseases like Ebola are prevalent in certain Central African countries, and people flee affected areas to avoid those risks. All these factors contribute to growing poverty levels and diminishing livelihood opportunities. Many people choose to escape these hardships by relocating to South Africa in search of a better life. Labor-intensive sectors such as agriculture and construction, as well as informal trade, present economic opportunities for both documented and undocumented migrants.
The World Bank estimates that by 2015 there will be between 39 million and 86 million climate migrants, which are people who are displaced by climate-related events around the world. And this phenomenon of the linkages between migration, environment and climate change has been studied extensively in other parts of the world, noticeably West Africa and Bangladesh. But there is still very much a lack of empirical data on the incidence of climate-induced migration in South Africa. And so the Water Research Commission, together with the CSIR, is funding a project that looks at the impact of environmental migrants in Southern Africa. This project is now in its third and final year. And as our case studies, we have the Musina area, which is the area by the Zimbabwean border with South Africa, as well as Gaza province in Mozambique, where we are looking at Gwija and Chokwe districts. Now, for the South African case study, we are looking predominantly at cross-border migration, so people coming into South Africa from countries such as Zimbabwe, Burundi, and the DRC. It's quite complex to study this because they do not come for a single reason. They often come for a combination of reasons. There are multiple factors that cause them to come into South Africa. These may be economic, political, security-related factors, but we are very interested in the environmental reasons for people to come to South Africa. And from our analysis to date, it looks like this has to do with slow onset disasters, such as the recent big drought that affected the SADC region. The Mozambican case study, there we are looking at rapid onset disasters and internal displacement, where the Mozambican government, in fact, has resettled people from Chokwe and Gwija districts as a result of extensive flooding in 2013. And there we are looking at how these people have been adapting to their new homes after having been resettled by the Mozambican government. The aim of the project is threefold. It is to inform the regional SADC policy position on environmental migration. It is to inform the national South African and Mozambican policy positions on environmental migration. And it is to develop adaptive capacity strategies for the affected environmental migrants in our two case studies.
So my master's research is looking at how seeking refuge outside one's country of origin could be an adaptive strategy to environmental change. So what I'm actually doing is looking at the lived experiences of migrants and refugees and really looking at their daily experiences. Who has migrated? Why have they migrated? And their migration journeys from the time they left their country of origin to the time they entered South Africa.
Many refugees and migrants travel to South Africa from countries like the DRC or Burundi. Others come from neighboring countries like Zimbabwe or are internally displaced as a result of flooding in Mozambique. Migrants and refugees often pay truck drivers for transport. This helps them to travel to South Africa and to reach the border town of Musina.
Conversating that I'm going to pay him money so that I can allow him.
And did you pay him money?
So pay him.
How much did you pay? $100 US dollars. People can enter South Africa legally or by following due process at the Beitbridge border post, or illegally by crossing the Limpopo River and the mostly broken down border fence between South Africa and Zimbabwe. There are many gaps in the fence line that protects the South African border, making it relatively easy for people to come into and leave South Africa. Regular foot patrols by the South African National Defence Force discourage illegal crossings, but many evade them and cross the border unhindered. People, as well as cattle and game, frequently cross the dry river bed, leaving tracks on the sandy soil. When the Limpopo River is flowing, it can be very difficult to cross, with crocodiles and hippo in abundance. Flooding can also occur in high rainfall years. However, during the winter months, the river predominantly runs dry and can be easily crossed on foot.
So 2006, 7, 8 until now, for that time Zimbabwe was disaster. It started now to come to people 1,800, 1,900, 2,000 per day. So for that year, it was big disaster in Zimbabwe. So I started to protect the people. I registered for refugee people because I was already registered for the church. So I was surprised. I see the people is coming. Doctors Without Borders, UN, Red Cross. So many organizations come here to see, but there's no support. The UN is just to build this storeroom and the kitchen. So Doctors Without Borders built the toilet and the shower. So it was working 1 to 2 years. He removed Doctors Without Borders. Now I see Doctors Without Borders is back again. Like you see, it's to renovate the toilet and the place the people can cook. They do the structure, the people can sleep there. But I've got a big problem here now. The people, those was coming from 2005 until now. The bill for the water now is very high. There's no one organization is trying to help me to pay the bill of water. And then the people here, there's no food to support the people. There's no blanket, there's no mattress. From now, more people, those is coming now, is coming from Zimbabwe. Is not so too much. But last week, Zimbabwe was 100 people because it's coming and go because the situation for here, I've got agreement with for 3 days, 72 hours, the people stay. But now I've got the problem with the people for Burundi, DRC and Congo and Ghana. So, but that Home Affairs now is the big disaster to him. If he go there to take Islam seekers, like the people for Zimbabwe, he say cannot help them because Zimbabwe does not fight. But it's the big disaster. But this for Burundi and DRC is suffered now here to Home Affairs. He give them 1 month Islam seekers. After that 1 month, he give them what? 3 months or 6 months. So he say go back to church, go and sit there. There's no blanket to sleep. There's no food to eat. No people is supporting. But all this organization, he said, go back to church, go and sit there until you find that 1 month Islam seekers is okay. So I try again to protect the people again.
The shelter actually started in 2008. That was when there was a huge influx of people from Zimbabwe. And Musina, being a border town, people came here and stayed here. And at that time people were staying at the showgrounds, men, women, children, and it was chaotic. So this was an old church, as you can see. So the various churches got together and decided how they would help. So this church then, it was offered that it could be a shelter for the women. I wasn't here at the time. I only came 4.5 years ago. Mama Esned, who works here, was here then. And it has continued ever since. Of course, the numbers are less now than they were then, but now they're increasing again, unfortunately. Like, we have a capacity, we used to have, up until this year, about 70 to 80 women. This year we've had over 100, 120. So it's really bad. Yeah, and I think it's a combination of factors between the economic situation in Zimbabwe, and then the situation in DRC in particular, and also home affairs that are taking longer to process the applications. The function of the shelter, really, it's a transit shelter. People are not supposed to stay longer than 3 months, but many people like to stay longer than 3 months. The idea is to have like a place of safety, a place of refuge for women who are traumatized, who have traveled maybe all the way from DRC, who come out of a traumatic situation in Zimbabwe, that they have a place to settle for a few months, that they have a place to feel safe. And that those who can get their papers, that they know that they can come back here in the evening and there's a place where they're secure. And also we talk with the people, do a bit of trauma counselling, refer them to the hospital, to the clinic, of course to home affairs, lawyers for human rights. It's that kind of thing. It's really basically to offer traumatized women and their children a place of refuge, a place of safety, so that they can find themselves again, if you like, and then move on. First of all, we don't get any funding from government, of course, and then we have two main funders. One is an organisation from Holland, Kinderfunds Mamas, because we have children here, they help us, and another is a foundation in Cape Town, the HCI Foundation, and they also help us. So between the two funders, that's actually what keeps the shelter going. If we didn't have them, we would have to close our doors, because we have to buy food, electricity, water, pay some salaries.
In the lower Limpopo Valley of Mozambique, cyclones, floods and droughts ravage communities with increasing intensity. After major flooding in 2013 in the Gaza province, the government of Mozambique built the resettlement camp of Chiacanin, located in the Guija district. Thousands of people live in close proximity to the Limpopo River and depend upon it for their livelihoods. Agriculture is an important sector for the Mozambican economy. The Chiaquilani resettlement camp was established in 2000 after major flooding of the Limpopo River. People who were resettled here lost most of their possessions due to flooding. Most farming is subsistence. However, this type of farming is particularly vulnerable to natural disasters such as floods and drought, which affects the food security of the country.
Okay. She said that she preferred to stay here because when she lived the other side, even rain. When it rains, you need to pick your stuff and move. Here is a good space. Rains, no rain, they are good. And the flags arrive at 90, and when the flags arrived, she only left because running water.
Okay.
She lose all things and she didn't take nothing.
Didn't take anything. Okay.
She said that the floods arrived when get in evening where she lived, and when the waters come, is few waters. She said, this water will go. We stay to see what's happened, and she took only the clothes, but a lot of things she left because the water to down to up is only 2 minutes. So
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So they rush, they run away, they left only. What he could take only is the clothes. Some clothes, not all clothes.
Were you scared? Did you think you were going to die that night?
Yes, yeah. And then my wife tell me, hey, but let's go because the water is somewhere there.
But the water, it was like this?
No. 2 meter 800.
But how then did you walk through that water?
When you see,
you go fast.
Go fast.
You go fast.
Yeah.
Before the water comes.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Oh, it's coming. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't come slowly, no, it come faster, and they have no time to take nothing. Only try to run to other places. And she went to the bus stop near to when she lived, and she have a luck because it stopped coming the car, and she took the car until here. When she arrived here, the government take care of them. But they left all of the house, no one stayed behind, but they didn't take nothing. When they arrived here in Chekani, the government received them, and they gave some tents, some foods to eat. They help us on all these days of floods. Say that today she went to try to ground it again because the rain maybe can
Are they
come.
hoping for the rain to come? Okay, all right.
It depends of the rain too.
Okay.
Locals say that the Limpopo River can bring great happiness, but also great sadness. People rely on the water for their livelihoods and wait in anticipation for the rains to come before they can plant. And yet, the same rains can be the cause of massive destruction. Those who have chosen to stay on now struggle to make a living as they live further away from land that is suitable for subsistence farming.
Okay, you said that in the first floods in 2000 was very difficult to receive the people because they don't know what can do. And they try to separate the childs, the old men, and separate the youngest, and who knows to write, to sign the papers, all these things. And the child and the old man, they take care for because they are not working, not time to do nothing, and they give some food, some space to stay, and they're building this area to give a space one family by family.
During times of natural disasters, local people become local heroes. Senor Makamu selflessly braved the floods to take children and livestock to a secure location. He then returned to salvage important documents and school equipment.
Projects like these are really important because they enable us to develop a better understanding of how to deal with the realities of climate-induced migration, which really is increasingly a worldwide phenomenon. We saw people coming into South Africa often also as a result of environmental factors and trying to make a new life here for themselves. faced by a host of challenges. The Mozambican case study was quite different. Here we saw people being displaced as a result of flooding and resettled by government, and relying largely on donor aid and aid by churches and NGOs to make a new life for themselves in their new surroundings. This project also gives us the opportunity to ask some really important questions. The first is whether the international definition of what constitutes or characterizes a refugee is still adequate for governments to be able to deal with people being displaced by environmental threats. We see millions of people being displaced globally on an annual basis by such threats, so perhaps it's time to revise this definition. The second question is around cooperation between sending and receiving governments in the case of cross-border environmental migration. What can these governments do to work better together in order to respond to such migration more constructively? The third question is about lessons. What can the Southern African region learn from other parts of the world in terms of how to respond to environmental migration? But also, what can other parts of the world learn from the Southern African region? And what really is important is that in answering these and other questions, we should not lose sight of the human rights dimension, which underpins everything related to the phenomenon of environmental migration.